G'day everyone. Firstly, a few thank yous to the Larrakia folks for their welcome to country. Thank you to Kay, Anna and Amy from ISON for this wonderful event. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak here today. And lastly, welcome to the international guests. I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay and you're getting a lot out of it. And also the tech boys as well, Josh and Ash up there doing a great job. So I'm Mark DeSaley. I'm the training manager for Arnhem Land Fire Abatement, and I'm here today to talk about the 3-year trial training project that ALFA embarked upon in 2021. But before that, I'd first like to recognise the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation and the Gurgud Kunji Trust. We received generous funding from these organisations, and this project would not have been possible without their help. So firstly, a bit of background on ALFA NT. We're an Aboriginal-owned, not-for-profit carbon farming business operating in Arnhem Land. ALFA was established by Aboriginal landowners in 2015 to support their participation in the carbon industry, and we work with 9 Indigenous ranger groups across the Arnhem region. The primary roles of ALFA are project administration and governance and fire management support, focus mainly on early dry season burning and late dry season wildfire suppression. In 2020, we looked at how else we could support ranger groups, and the most obvious thing was an accredited training delivery. Why get into training? Basically, we felt that training needs for ranger groups involved in Savanna burning projects were not being met, and that there was no training available in the NT for some types of work that rangers did, and the existing training did not always match the nature of the work rangers were doing. Ranger groups had to pay big money for interstate trainers who often had limited comprehension of the operational and social context within Arnhem Land. So the primary objective of this project is to deliver good training. And what does that look like? Well, we think it's experienced people with experience in Arnhem Land delivering training that matches the work. It's on the job, it meets the needs and expectations of industry, and is reinforced, whereby students are given opportunity to refresh their skills with post-training instruction. The results we'd like to see are an increased capacity across Arnhem Land where more people can do more stuff. We want ranger groups to maintain resilience in response to change in the workplace, such as staff turnover, skill shift, and advances in technology. We also hope that training will provide opportunity for rangers who want to work with different organisations in different regions. And lastly, we want to give recognition of the skills and knowledge many rangers already have. To ensure training is accredited and national standards are met, we established a third-party agreement with TrainSafe NT, a registered training organisation based in Darwin. And that arrangement has been really good. They have a strong history of training in Arnhem Land, and because it's a small organisation, there's one point of contact and it can make adaptive decisions in quick time. The process we followed was first to ask people what they wanted. So at our pre-season fire meeting in early 2021, we asked the ranger groups 3 questions. We asked what were their training needs, what were their aspirations, and lastly, what they thought the training model should look like. Now that generated a lot of information, but the boiled down version of that is that people wanted more training. They wanted training to be accredited and delivered by skilled trainers. The women wanted women trainers, and people wanted to know how to use the incendiary machine and fight fires. How people wanted that training delivered was very clear. They were very clear on that. They wanted it out bush, practical, on the job and hands-on, supported by training videos in language. So last year, we did what people asked for and delivered training and activities common to Savanna burning projects, and they included safety around aircraft, aerial incendiary operations, workplace safety and wildfire response. We'll increase the number of units delivered this year, and down the track we plan to increase the range and number of units further. We also established a training reference group to provide focus and advice, made up of the people from groups you see here, and we meet a few times a year. What have we found to be helpful and effective so far? Well, having a shared work history means training is delivered by people known within the community. So in my previous role with ALFA, I did a lot of aerial burning and firefighting with rangers across every part of Arnhem Land, and it meant lots of time working together in often very demanding situations, and we got to know each other, warts and all. So training events are not obstructed by having to get to know each other first. Also, I got to see how people operate in the very different physical environments across the Arnhem landscape, and that helps to change the training context to suit those different conditions. The effective things have been making training part of work. And a good example of this is aerial incendiary operations, where training flights are for long periods over legitimate target areas. The setting is real world and there's time for conditions to change or for things to go wrong. And that's good because operating the incendiary machine is pretty easy when things are going well. True competence lies in knowing what to do when they don't. Having a small number of students makes sure everyone gets a good go at doing stuff. And it also helps to have a flexible delivery process in response to things like date changes, location changes of where you need to be, and student absence, for example. Return visits to complete training are important because sometimes conditions are just not right for what we need to do, particularly with aerial burning. So to make sure no one misses out, you just got to be prepared to go back. And lastly, providing rigorous and realistic training is very effective. Some of the work rangers do carries an element of risk, but instead of mounting some sort of crusade towards a zero risk environment, I think the optimal way to build capacity in that regard is structured exposure to risk itself. So what are the challenges? What have we run up against? Well, now and then life gets in the way, stuff happens that throws a spanner in the works. Occasionally the whole toolbox goes in with it. And all you can do is bumble along and try and navigate the best way forward. Another challenge is time and space. So Arnhem Land is a big place. Lots of people want training and demand is likely to grow. And one trainer is not enough, but we've recognised that and made adjustments to improve our service into the future. And lastly, USI numbers, which I only recently discovered doesn't stand for unending scratching irritation, but rather it stands for unique student identifier. So if you've had any trouble with that, you're not alone. But I've met with the mob from the Office of the Student Identifiers Registrar, and they're good people and they want to help us, and we've organised for them to attend the pre-season ALFA pre-season planning meeting via Zoom, and they're going to talk through a list of problems and ideas that ranger groups across Arnhem Land came up with and sent off to them for review. And so what will make a big difference? What will improve the acquisition and retention of skills and knowledge in Arnhem Land? I think the most significant things are training videos in regional language. We made some trial products last year. They were really effective. We've scaled that up for this year and filming starts in April. I've also found that where needed, interpreter assistance during training is like oiling a moving part, and it's just fantastic for transfer of information. And an apprenticeship style approach to training where there's incremental development of individuals over a number of years, giving people time to acquire greater depth and breadth of knowledge is quite important. And finally, more training staff will enable us to cover more ground. So from here it'll be just a matter of a rolling cycle of develop, apply, review and adapt, just to find the optimal fit for Arnhem Land. That's probably going to be a moving target all the time, the way things change. So in summary, as a trainer there are some tough days and there's some really good days, but most are somewhere in between. But just keeping your eyes on the prize and doing whatever it takes to get there, well, it means that sometimes you might get to see someone do something that they previously thought they couldn't, and that's just magic as a trainer. And finally, I think training should be as close to as possible to real-world situations. I heard a quote recently from someone trained to work in mission control during the Apollo space program who said, the training was harder than reality, and by the time we got to an actual space flight, we were ready. But I suppose when something like Apollo 13 happens, all you can do is just keep calm. And that's it. Thank you very much.